Hey guys, Pitmaster here. I just want to talk a little bit about UFC 185 this past weekend. We're going to cover it a little more with Tommy Tohold in my podcast coming up this week. But right now, let's talk about. I just want to cover what I think the people that won did right, what the people that lost could have done more of, and how the corner. So you guys are out there that are coaches, what the corner could have done a little differently to maybe change the outcome, which does happen in the corner. I have seen fights won and lost in the corner. So anyway, let's talk about Ross Pearson, Sam Stout. Ross Pearson nailed him with a left hook, dropped him. Now, nothing the corner could have done because that happened, split second in the middle of the fight. But what training could have done, when your fighter throws his left hook, you got to make sure he keeps his right hand up, because it's so natural to drop your hand because you're trying to get as much power as you can, and that's natural. But you have to keep that muscle memory with the left hand, with the right hand up. You just have to. And if you're southpaw, the other way around. But obviously, we're throwing the left hook. Always make sure their right hand is touching their face. Because if it's not, it's going to automatically drop. And if two people hook at the same time, the person with the hand up is usually going to be the one standing up. Okay? Just like in this fight, or Dan Hardy against Condit. I mean, there's been a lot of fights where you see two guys exchanging hooks, and the one with their hand up is going to stay standing. The one with their hand down is going to be knocked out. So that's what I got to say about that. If you're a coach, make sure you watch your fighters or your students. And if you're a fighter, make sure you drill that yourself. Not a bad thing to do would be like, put something right here. Like, okay, I'll tell you something right here. I got this toothbrush here because I am into dental hygiene, so I have a toothbrush. Keep it here. Do something. Put anything right there and just practice your hooks. Okay, just drill that muscle memory of keeping your hand up when you throw a hook. Okay, so that's my tip there. Okay, I'm going to go right to the Johanna. I'm not even going to try to say her last name. Tommy Tohold does. Good for him. He's good at that. I'm not. So it's Johanna. She's from Poland. She beat Carla Esparza. Stopped her in the second round with just an unbelievable flurry up against the cage. What could have Carla done differently? I think she was doing a lot of shooting out of desperation, and it was showing. A lot of times in a fight, you guys know it if you've been in there, but if you have to have a poker face, and you can't, telegraph or show your hand. And she was doing that with the takedowns. They were a little easier to defend against that way. I think if she cut off the cage more with really fast, sporadic head movement, and when I say sporadic, I just mean unrhythmic. Like, you can time that, but if you're just kind of bing, 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 and then shoot, or bing, 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 throw a combination, shoot. She had to be a little less on the telegraphing, a little more unpredictable, and she had to be moving forward more and cutting off the cage and then exploding with a combination and a shot. She was getting to the point really quickly in the fight after she tasted a few punches. She was getting to the point where she was just doing desperation shots. I think she needed to put her shots behind her punches. And that Johanna did such a good job throwing crazy strikes all from all angles. She even threw an inward hammer blow. This is an old Kempo move. And she actually rocked Carla with that. If you guys remember that. It was in the first round. So that was that. I think Roy Nelson, what he could have done differently, instead of following Alistar, who was actually at some points turning around and running and then stopping and then doing a strike or two, a knee, a punch, he was dictating when he was going to punch and where he was going to be. I think if Roy cut off the cage more, was more forward moving, but but in a lateral way. In other words, going side to side and cutting off the cage and then exploding with combinations, not just one punch at a time, he would have been much more effective because his punches are unbelievably hard and so is his chin. But he was letting Alistar run around the ring and he was kind of following him instead of cutting off the cage. Okay? Johnny Hendricks, Matt Brown. I think Johnny Hendricks won that fight by setting up his beautiful shots with beautiful, powerful punches, and Matt Brown was giving him the room to do that and the time. I think Matt Brown should have been moving forward more behind combinations and then throwing his power punches as opposed to letting Johnny Hendricks dictate that pace. Easier said than done. I know that, but it's a game of both guys trying to impose their wills and their strategies, and one usually comes out ahead. And I think Matt Brown's should have been, especially in the going into the last round, should have been more of a sense of urgency and just go in throwing. And if you get taken down off the combination, it's better to get taken down when you're going forward throwing combinations than moving backwards and being taken down. Okay, at least you have a chance of a knockdown when you're moving forward banging. And when you're losing the fight 2-0, that last round, you need to throw caution to the wind and go for the KO. Okay? All right, last one. Let's talk about Rafael Dos Anjos, and who's going to be on our podcast next week. Rafael has agreed to do our podcast, Bushido Talk, next week. So you're going to hear him talk about his win against Anthony Pettis. It was unbelievable. He set up takedowns. Powerful kicks. He was actually matching Anthony with his kicks. His kicks were very powerful. Anthony, of course, has more fancier kicks and nicer, faster Taekwondo kicks. But Rafael was throwing power body kicks. He was throwing powerful punches. He was really throwing some good body shots to Anthony. What could have Anthony done differently? I think he should have, so easy to say because Rafael was like a freight train going forward. It's so easy to say right now, but I think Anthony should have tried to stay in the middle of the cage more, inside that black line, and try to move around with faster footwork. Easier said than done with someone like him coming at you. But I think faster footwork, more angles, and then quick combinations and moving. It looked like Anthony was trying to set up too many knockouts with his punches and his kicks, and he was not as effective as he is when he uses his speed and lets it flow. I think he needed to use more lateral movement and try to keep the fight in the middle of the cage. And like I said, easier said than done because Rafael had the perfect strategy of cutting off the cage and throwing power shots against the striker. So he was basically matching the striker strike for strike, and then as soon as he landed a powerful strike, he would come in for the shot and then get on top, pound away. So it was an unbelievable strategy, and he carried it out perfectly for the whole 5 rounds. And obviously his cardio was off the hook because he didn't even seem to tire at the end of the fight. But it was a great card, and we're going to talk about it more in this week's Bushido Talk. Thanks for coming, and if you guys need anything, you know how to get in touch with me.